Welcome to the Make It Happen podcast. My name is Melanie Moreno. I am a blogger, a content creator, a health coach, and most importantly, I will be your host. Join me for some fun and inspiring conversations with amazing individuals coming up now. Hey there. So I feel like I must explain, since this is a podcast and all you ever do is listen to my voice. I don't know if my voice sounds a little bit different today. I kind of screamed too much yesterday. I went to a friend's show, and it's probably not a good idea that I'm recording this right now, but I'm trying to get the podcast ready for all of you guys, and I didn't want to waste any time. So the way I hear it, my voice sounds a little bit rough, and I can't really raise it. If I want to speak louder, it sort of just chops off. So hopefully it's not too annoying. You only need to listen to it for a few minutes right here, and then in the outro, the rest of the episode, my voice is normal because I recorded it earlier. Okay, so today we have an incredible guest on the show. I first started talking to Genina, or Jen as she more commonly goes by, earlier this year. She kind of has an answer for everything, but not in a smart aleck sort of way. She's just spent a fair amount of time understanding herself and also utilizing her intuitive gifts, which I think just makes her highly intelligent. We dive into what her intuitive abilities are during this episode, and we explore how she cultivated this knowing, as she calls it. Also, how she decided to turn that into a means to help other people through tarot card readings. If that's a subject that you're not totally on board with, I'd still encourage you to listen to the episode, because it's only one facet of who she is, and who knows, you might learn something new. We definitely talk about more than just tarot, though. If you've been listening from the beginning, you know that I love when someone is self-aware, and Jen is insanely self-aware. I approached her to be on this podcast with the intention of discussing authenticity, and we didn't speak on it so blatantly, but I think Jen's entire story is one of learning to find and embrace herself, and her pure authenticity radiates through. Some things you can expect to hear in this episode are how Jen has dealt with labels and deciding what qualities she held and what qualities she wanted to identify with versus the ones that other people would expect of her, which is a really hard thing to do as an empathetic person. She also shares about her ultimate low point, what it was like battling depression, how she's been learning to set boundaries for herself, and also tips for getting unstuck. This episode is loaded with information as told through Jen's experiences. I know you guys are gonna love this episode. It's such a good one. Even I am really excited to listen to this conversation again. But before we get into it, I just want to say, if you like this podcast, please consider leaving a rating and review over on iTunes. As much as I'd like to be alternative and not care about iTunes ratings, it is still pretty much the best way to get this podcast to gain exposure and bring it to the ears of people who can most benefit from it. So I would much appreciate that. Thank you so much if you have left a review and a rating already. And the rest of you guys, I see you're listening. Go leave a rating and review. All right. Let's welcome Genina Sanchez to the Make It Happen podcast. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on the Make It Happen podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Let me just have you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your upbringing.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm Jen. I'm an artist, a tarot reader, and I've had an interesting upbringing. I am the only girl of 5. I think there's, 4. So I have 4 brothers. Technically, I'm the 4th, I guess. I'm the 4th person, the 4th kid. And I just grew up with a lot of noise around me. I guess that's the best way that I can go ahead and describe it. A lot of people around, a lot of things were going on, very different ages. So I was able to experience people that were Like, my oldest brother is 10 years older than me, and then my little brother is just a couple years younger than me. Grew up in Imperial. After that, I moved to Ventura County, and I was there for about 8 years. That's when I discovered that I was really an artist. And actually, that's where I discovered that I could actually read tarot. Before that, I was very intuitive, had very interesting experiences regarding the spiritual realm, I guess, and spirituality in itself. Yeah, so grew very Catholic and had to have that conversation with myself of, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this witchcraft? That's like the common thing that you'll hear about doing tarot readings. And just kind of having that kind of mindset versus, is this right or this wrong kind of type of thing. But yeah, so I recently came back maybe almost a year now, so I've almost been back for about a year. And it's been an interesting kind of thing of reacclimating to family life, like with my family around me versus me being on my own, and kind of dealing with situations as they come up on my own. And of course, I always had somebody to ask advice about, but really kind of head on by myself. And yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at now. If I could wrap it up really quickly, that's pretty much.
Well, you don't have to wrap it up really quickly, however you want to tell it.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to ask more questions.
Yeah,
then.
go for it.
So can you take us back to childhood a little bit? You said that you grew up always having that very intuitive sense. So what's an example of that, or an experience that stands out to you of having those source senses and maybe even not really knowing, what it was that you had, that ability?
I always had and it's really not hard to explain, I guess, if you don't have it, or I believe everybody has a sense of deeper knowing, like you just know things. And that's how I was as a child. I just knew things. I was someone that everybody always said, you're like an old soul and all this, that kind of stuff. But I just knew things. I knew that I would have a dream the night before, like if I was running on the playground and I would fall in front of everybody and everybody would laugh, then the next day or the day after that, it would happen. I would have things about, like, I would know almost pretty much how the format of a test would be before we would have it. And I just had a deeper knowing of things. I remember, like, just knowing that my aunts were pregnant before they told anybody. I knew somebody was going to get sick before they got sick. And just as simple as, like, a cold. And just that kind of thing was always going on. When I got older, it became more of a thing that was outside of myself. So it's, like, usually it was me that I was, like, had a deeper knowing about, or my family. When I got older, even, like, more so, and even my friends was like, you just know things. But when I got older, it was more so like I would have dreams about friendships that I didn't have. Like, I didn't have communication with certain friends for years, and I would reach out to them and be like, you know what, this is exactly what I'm going through, or this is exactly how I'm feeling right now. And it was always like I was looking for a sign, and then you sent me a message, or it was just always kind of something like that. Or it's funny. It was always been like, it's funny because I was just thinking of that, or I was thinking about going to this party and I decided not to. And then I get this message, and it was kind of like the confirmation that they needed, that, okay, whatever their gut feeling was, they listened to it. So instances like that would happen, not often, not every day, or not even like, it would happen like every couple of months. And that's for me when I really decided, okay, maybe tarot is something that I should look into myself more, and it was really not about me anymore. It was about other people.
That's so fascinating. Like these coincidences basically just lining up all throughout your younger years. And would people come to you before you started reading tarot? Would people come to you and ask you things like, what do you think about this? Like, just asking your advice because you had that extra like wiseness? I had so many people. I was friends with a lot of people, especially like I have a really hazy childhood. Like, it's very it's not as a strong memory for me, but I remember like middle school, high school, I would be friends with everybody that was in my class. And it wasn't my main group of people. I would literally talk to everybody, and so many people would go ahead and tell me, you're so easy to talk to. I don't know why. You just seem like somebody that I can tell my secrets to. And I was trusted even if they didn't really know me, besides having me in third period for math. And I got a lot of, this is what's going on with my family. This is what's going on with my mom, my dad, my boyfriend, whatever it is. What do you think I should do?
And I was someone, I didn't have a tons of life experiences, but I was someone that's like, maybe this is how they're feeling. It was, for me, it's always about feeling, feeling, feeling. And I was like, maybe you should see it from this perspective, or maybe this is how they're feeling, or, I could feel like you're feeling this type of way if you're feeling sad, angry, and they would be like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And whether they apply that advice or not was totally up to them, but a lot of people needed to hear that kind of the confirmation that whatever they were going through was valid. Like however they were feeling, however they were, what was going on didn't seem in their head. And I think that's what I provided for a lot of people. Like, okay, no, I totally see your point of view and what you're going through this, but have a different perspective, or you don't. And I always had that at an early age of viewing things in someone else on their side, in their shoes, and I would always kind of give that perspective to other people also. So it was just a very interesting, but that was a common thing of like, I always want to come to you for advice. And I never understood why, because I wasn't somebody, like I said, that had a tons of life experiences I felt like I grew up very sheltered, I was the only girl in a Mexican household. We stayed home, we did our homework, we did our chores, and if I was going to softball practice or piano practice, I did that, but I would come back and that was pretty much it. I didn't have friends on the block. I was very, and that's just how I am, an introverted person also. I was just very much inside, but all these people would come to me, people that I didn't know, people that were older than me, younger than me, and just ask for my opinion on stuff. And it was really interesting to me. And that's something that still kind of happens, just now I have more life experiences.
Are you empathic?
I would say that I am. I could just have I haven't defined myself as to what I am. I always just hope I just know things. That's just how I am. But I do have a sense of what other people are feeling. Physically, sometimes it really just depends. I'm still discovering almost every single day what my abilities are, I guess you could say. But empathic that's what I usually tell people. I'm an empath. I'm very intuitive, but very much like if someone's feeling overwhelmed, even in a reading, my tone of voice will change, and it's usually not because of me. It's because I'm externalizing what people are feeling internally. So my speech will change. It'll get faster. It'll get slower. It'll get deeper for whoever is I'm reading for, or if it's for someone in particular. Like if it's like if you were getting a reading and you were nervous and jittery, I would start kind of speaking nervous and jittery. If you were more kind of somber or sad, I would speak that way. Or if you was reading for someone that was really energetic and really bubbly, then I would be that way also. So it's just really interesting, and I'm starting to notice like I had to learn how to like, this isn't me, this is you, or this is that energy that we're reading for, or anything kind of like that. And it was really interesting, and I started noticing because I didn't have a teacher in any of this, like it was kind of more so my own research and my own experience, and kind of figuring out, is this my feelings or is this someone else's feelings? And that's an interesting question to have you ask yourself in general. But then I started, okay, that doesn't feel like me. You have to be sure of yourself to know what is you and what isn't you.
How do you feel you've established your own identity? I mean, it sounds like you're still in the process of it, of course.
Oh, definitely.
But how do you feel you've somewhat solidified your identity enough to even come to that conclusion to say, like, this is not a feeling of mine, this is someone else's or something else's. So how do you... I feel like that's also something very important to establish in your line of work, or as a person, every person in general definitely. Actually should have a set identity for themselves. So how do you feel over the course of your young years? How have you come to that?
Well, it's interesting. My younger years, it was really difficult because I feel like I viewed the world in a very different lens. So I feel like I didn't grow up until I moved out of my parents' house. Because I was more so of, this is supposed to happen. Like, these are the things that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to hang out with your friends. You're supposed to, go out and kiss boys and, like, do all these things that I never felt like were me. So for me to figure out who I was, it was figuring out the things that I was doing, or the things that I thought I was supposed to be doing, that I didn't feel like I should associate myself with. Not because they were bad or anything like that, because it never felt like it was me. So it was really establishing what I'm not first. And there's like a lyric in a Kanye song, but it's like everything I'm not made me everything that I am. And that's really what it felt like. All these things that I knew that I wasn't really made me figure out. And then, because you have to start deciding, then if you're not going to be all these things, then what are you going to be? So it wasn't until I got older and when I started really decide. I never felt like I had authority over my life until I got older, which is really, I guess, odd. I don't know if other people feel that way. But I really kind of started deciding for myself, okay, this is what I believe in, this is not what I believe in, and this is what I stand up for myself, or if I'm not going to stand up for myself, or certain things that's kind of what shaped who I am. I don't know if that makes sense. But, and that's what I decided. So I didn't really decide it when I was younger. I knew that I was smart. I knew that I was talkative. I knew that I was really bubbly and friendly, and I would laugh a lot of the time and really kind of goofy. I knew those things about myself, and those are the things that are what I still carry with myself. But then at the same time, I knew that I could be to myself. I knew it could be quiet. I knew that I needed time to kind of think to myself. So those are the little things that I knew as a child. And then when I got older, it was more, what do I not want to be, and what did I had to see myself as in a different lens. I kind of had to see outside of myself to really understand. And like you said, it's always kind of an evolving thing. Everything you figure out if you want to keep this or if you want to let this go. Or you see other parts of people that you're like, okay, I want to kind of bring that more into myself, and how am I going to do that? So it's an evolving type of thing. I think nobody should stay one kind of person, like stubborn, even though I am stubborn, but like, I think you should always try to make yourself a better person every day.
Have you ever struggled with feeling like you are the embodiment of other people's projections instead of, being your own person?
Definitely. I think being an only girl, that was the first thing that I heard. Oh, you must be a brat. You must be spoiled. And I was like, took that in a lot of the time, where I was like, I'm a brat and I am spoiled and all these things. And it was because you're an only girl. You have all of these. And my family would put that on me, like my aunts and my uncles, my siblings would put that on me. And then I started to realize, no, I'm not those things. Yes, I can be a brat. Because I'm a younger child compared to everybody else. So yes, and I was an only girl, so I did have a little bit of favoritism in certain ways. But I started putting, and the whole kind of, you're a girl, this is how it's supposed to be, this is how you're going to dress, this is how you're going to look. I really kind of took that in and had people decide what I was going to be. And it was until I kind of stepped out of the house, and for some reason, and everybody, to me, I really wanted to make everybody happy. I wanted everybody to be proud of me, and I think a lot of people still feel that way. But then for some reason, I don't know what it was, I woke up and I was like, nobody has to deal with my decisions beside myself. Whether I mess up or whether I really do good, it's really up to me. And that really kind of changed my perspective on everything. So I used to take in a lot of stuff. I used to have people tell me who I was, and I used to just kind of go with it until I was like, I don't have to do this anymore. Like, it's all really up to me and what I want in my life. And what it sparked that was, it's actually college. I was about 2.5 years into my business degree, and I woke up and I was like, not that I hate this, but I don't want this life. I don't want to work in a cubicle. I don't want to have to dress up in business attire every single day. And what really sparked the idea was, I was like, I don't want 5-10 years down the line to sit back at my desk and say, I hate this and I don't like this because of my parents. Because my parents were so proud of me. I was the first person in my family to go to college, especially at my age. I have cousins that are older that went to college, but I think it was the second cousin, like in my grandma's family, that went, and he's like 7 years older than me. So it was a gap. Then it was me, and everyone was so proud of me to go and all this stuff, because a lot of people expected for me to stay in the valley and do things like that, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I knew I wanted more for myself. Nobody pushed me to go ahead and do that. I did that for myself. And to tell my parents, hey, I want to switch my degree to an art degree. And they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What are you going to do with an art degree? You should stay in business. Take some more math classes. All this stuff. And I was like, I'm doing this because I don't want to hate. I know that I probably wouldn't hate them. I don't want to give myself a reason, a chance to hate you. or to be mad at you for a certain reason. So I was like, I'm going to do this for myself. Ultimately, I'm the one that's paying for this. I'm the one that's paying for the school. I'm the one that is working extra hours, paying my own rent and all these things. This is going to be my decision. It took a long time. I want to say a whole year for them to kind of get on board as to what I was doing. And I got a lot of, you should go back, you should switch. It was a lot of, I felt like I failed my parents. I felt like all these different things. I was going to have to take extra time because I had to start back over. And yeah, it wasn't until I sold my first painting basically and they saw, oh, she can make money off of this. And I gave them a list of careers that I could do with an art degree, where they starting to get on board with that. And then here comes a couple years later where I'm like, I don't know, I think I'm more on the spiritual side and I really want to help people. And I think because I did the whole thing with the art, they were more accepting of it, and they were accepting of the fact that, oh, she's going to do what she wants now, and she's going to prove us wrong, and she will do it. So they're more supportive, even though they're not verbally supportive. They're not kind of, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. So, and that to me, that's totally fine. Not everybody has to be on board and not everybody has to agree with me, but they're not someone that is they're not breaking me down or telling me to stop, by no means.
They don't see the vision that you have for yourself at this moment.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly what it is. And I mean, my vision is being defined every single day. Do I want to it's overwhelming sometimes, I think, to live, to be a creative and to be empathic, intuitive, and to deal with, not deal, because it makes it seem like it's hard, because I love my jobs. I love what I do. I really do. I love that I get to connect with people on a daily basis, and I love that I get to help people. And I love that people want to listen to me, and I think that's really interesting to me because I guess I never felt like I was worth listening to. And so I started speaking, and people were like, turn their heads, and they're like, oh, wow, she has something to say. I totally got a little off track, but yeah, they didn't see the vision, and that's changing daily. Do I still want to do this? Do I want them to do this in a different way? Maybe I should, study this instead versus study tarot and all these other things. But I know whatever I decide to do is ultimately, like, I just want to not make myself happy because I don't have, not that I don't have regard for anybody else, but I know if I can live for myself, and I can teach other people, hey, you can live for yourself and you can do things that make you happy, and in turn you're going to make other people happy also. And if you do this in such a way that you're not harming yourself, you're not hurting yourself, and you're doing it in a positive way, you're going to live a life. Like, it's been I've like worked jobs where I made a lot of money, and I've done all that, and I didn't feel as fulfilled as I do now. And to me, that is more important than anything. The feeling that I get on every single day, on a daily basis, even though it is stressful sometimes, the work that I do, it's some of the most wonderful work that I have ever done. And I felt like I've really found something that makes me happy, something that really makes me want to get up and go. And it doesn't matter the money, it doesn't matter all that stuff, because I know if I live my truth and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be supported. I'm going to have a house over my head, and I know I'm going to have food on the table. I know all those things. So it's, to me, like, the money doesn't matter, even though it's nice. We all like to treat ourselves and buy nice things. But it really is that feeling of, am I doing good? Am I putting out good into this world? That's really what pushes me every day.
It sounds like you have a sense of security and, while you might not know what's to come, a sense of security in yourself, like in your abilities, and knowing that you can get yourself back on your feet with whatever choice you end up making.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's because like I said, I've gone through my ups and downs. I lived that. I've made a lot of money, made no money. When I came back to the Valley, I didn't have a job, and I literally provided for myself through tarot, and I was like, oh, crap, like, this is real. I can really do this. And I, and the same thing with art. Art was the first thing that kind of was different that I was doing, and I never pursued art full time. I always had a job when I was doing art, but it was something that I did, and I went to art shows and I slung canvases and prints and all that stuff. And once I started, like, I would go and I would make money. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I could really do this. This is those things. And I always tell myself, like, if you really were to put full time, 40 hours plus into all this, imagine where you could be. But for some reason, I love having my hand in multiple areas because I really feel like that feels like more like me versus, I don't know, I'm very unfocused. I have like an odd focus. I'm focused and unfocused at the same time. And I like being able to do this and do that. And because those two things provide for me in very different ways. Like I feel like for me, art is something that I can really give myself to and it gives back to me. Not that I'm saying tarot doesn't do that, but on the other hand, you have the other person that's sitting across from you. And sometimes it's frustrating. It is dealing with other people, I guess. And you don't know how receptive they're going to be or if they are as open as they say they are. I mean, you could feel that when you're doing the reading. So I like having I know that I'm going to be okay. I know that I know we're going back, but I know I'm going to be okay and I know it's going to be fine. And I like having these kind of multiple avenues. And that's why, honestly, one of the reasons why I like working at the coffee shop too is because it's kind of like that back and forth with some of the customers, not all of them, but some of them, they tell you a little snippet about their day, about their week, or about their childhood, or something like that. And there's so much information that you can gain from that little moment, that little interaction, that I feel like I get little gems every single day from these people. And not only that, that helps me in my art, that helps me with my clients. And it's interesting how everything kind of fell together in this last year, because this is really the last one this year. I've decided to take a break. And even though I'm doing stuff all the time, I'm not working a regular job, I'm not going to school, I'm not doing those things. This is the year that I've decided I'm just kind of my Jesus take the wheel type of thing. Like, I'm just going to see where the universe takes me. I'm going to see what happens and I'm going to be happy with it. And so far, I have been happy with my choices. And it's been interesting and frustrating at the same time. And it's not like a perfect year, but really, I'm really interested to see what's going to come out of this year. Whether it is some big aha moment or just really a learning. I take everything as a learning experience. And this year will help me into the next. And I'm really excited and happy about what I've been learning so far. And I really feel like that has helped me a lot in a lot of different ways. I think more so than if I were working a full-time job and doing all those things at the same time.
What's the biggest challenge you feel you've ever had to face?
Honestly, I think it's myself. I think I'm sometimes my biggest challenge, and deciding to work on myself every single day has been one of the biggest obstacles that I have. I'm someone that has a mental illness, so that is something that I have to deal with every single day. And it's a choice whether I'm going to go ahead, and sometimes I have to decide that. Are we going to stay in bed? Are we going to cry? Are we going to do these things? Are we going to get up and go? And, those issues, those things that you want to, like, think about, they're still going to be there, but what are you going to do? And I had a lot of hard times where it was months of a month of I just want to stay in bed and lay in bed and not do anything, and deciding, okay, we can live with our traumatic experiences and we can, it's interesting. I was thinking about what we were going to talk about on the podcast, and this is one of the things that kind of came to my mind was our experiences, I believe they do define us, but we choose how they're going to define us. And that was the biggest thing of, okay, you've been through all these things, are really stressed out, you have all these things going on. How are you going to choose what this moment is? That experience that you don't want, that is hard for you to deal with or whatever, how are you going to live with that? You have that choice. You can go ahead and harbor all those feelings, harbor those emotions, or you can seek the help, you can seek the therapy, you can seek or work on yourself and kind of, I always talk about how we feel a lot of the time is like a tree. You could start peeling back the branches and kind of figuring out, why are you feeling a certain way, and to find the root cause of certain things. And I started doing that. And I fought myself a lot to it because it's hard work. It's not easy to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm suffering with this. This is what's going on. Or this thing that happened when I was a kid, or happened when I was 13, or happened whatever it was. Like, and having to decide whether that is how I'm going to live with it, how I'm going to choose for it, how am I going to make myself a better person. A lot of it wasn't for me, it was for my family or for my friends or stuff like that, to make myself a better person, a stronger person. But I fought myself because it's so easy, and it's hard living with all that stuff, but it's so easy to just sit in that moment and to sit in despair, or to sit in hurt, and to sit in fear, whether it is to like, okay, I gotta rise above this, and kind of get myself out of those moments and seek help or seek whatever you need. So I've always been my biggest challenge, my biggest obstacle, because I am someone that's I'm very critical of myself. And a lot of the things that sometimes I don't like to try unless I know I'm going to succeed. And I've had to tell myself a lot of the times and it doesn't matter what it is. Like, it doesn't matter a job, it doesn't matter a painting, it doesn't matter if it's working out, and and I'm someone that has big ideas and I want to accomplish those big ideas. So if I feel like get so excited, I'm like, you're gonna fail. Like, I tell myself, you're gonna fail. You can't do that. You can't open up a shop, and you can't paint and get paid for it, and you can't read tarot. No one's gonna listen to you. And I just had to, like, okay, I had to basically tell myself, what is the worst thing that's gonna happen? You're gonna fail, and you're gonna be right where you're at now, but you're gonna learn things along the way, or you're gonna succeed and you're gonna be so much happier, or you're gonna figure out that's not what I want to do, period. So I had to kind of break it down, and all that fear and all the anxiety and all the worry that I had about it, which is what it was, tell me don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I had to say, like, we're gonna have to quiet that down, and we're just gonna have to break it down as logical and analytical it is. You're either gonna fail or you're gonna succeed. There's a lot of that in between, and you define what that is for you. And you can see your failures as learning lessons, which is a lot of what I've done, and I'm not saying I failed a ton, or you can take your success, which is what you want, and you can go ahead and go for it. So a lot of the things was just taking a chance, taking a risk, and really kind of listening to myself, but not completely listening to myself. Because if I listened to myself, I would just be at home watching Netflix. But at the same time, I have that other part of my brain that's like, no, we got to do this, and you can do this, and you're awesome. And so it was just kind of who and what do I listen to, kind of.
So that time in your life where was this last year, did you say? Or in recent time, you said that you had this feeling where you just kind of wanted to stay in bed all the time, and it was sort of a low feeling.
Yeah.
Was that due to some big event in your life, or more of an accumulation of all sorts of events, and you just trying to figure out, who am I, the purpose, that kind of thing?
It was a mix of things. So it was a kind of...
If you feel comfortable sharing, of course.
Go ahead. It was a couple of things that had happened in my child. So it was a lot of things that had happened in my childhood, which was a lot of people experience that people don't want to talk about. And once I started talking about it more, it was interesting to see that people had similar experiences. So part of it was being molested as a child. That's something that came up. And those are things that, because of in a way that I grew up, we didn't talk about it. It wasn't talked about. And I didn't address it until 20 years later, after it had happened. So there was that. But then because I wasn't addressing something like that, a lot of things, I started becoming like depressed as a young age. So I was dealing with that. And then when I went to college for the first time, I was surrounded by people all the time in my household, because I have a big family as it is. And then being able to have so much freedom to yourself can get overwhelming. So I was being overwhelmed by that, and overwhelmed by just the amount of work that I had to do in school. So that's kind of where a lot of my anxiety, depression really started coming up, and where I really started getting diagnosis for things. And then so then I got a handle on that. I started doing a lot of other stuff, and then usually has been all those experiences at the same time. Heartbreaks with friendships, heartbreaks with the relationships, kind of nothing ever happens my way, woe is me, have a lot of those moments. which I still, every once in a while, still have. But just really not understanding rejection, I guess, sometimes in life. And just being frustrated with having to pay bills and pay rent and go to, like, working 40 hours and going to school 30 hours and doing my schoolwork all that time. So, and trying to have a balance between work, life, friendship, school, all these things was very overwhelming for me. So I found myself having almost like a mental break at like 22 years old. And I had to tell myself to slow down. I had to tell myself all these things. So it was like accumulation of life. And I realized, and going through therapy, I recommend everybody go to therapy at some point in their life, even if nothing's going on, just do it. Was that I was going 100 miles an hour all the time. And I never gave myself the second to kind of relax and rest. So it was all of those moments that really kind of accumulation, and every once in a while things like that still come up, still happen. But now I have better tools and better things that really have helped me out. And a lot of it is honestly meditation, and a lot of it is self-reflection, and a lot of it is realizing where my fault is in some things, and realizing where I don't have any fault in this, and this didn't happen to, like, this isn't my fault why this happened. And all of that stuff, which led me to tarot in kind of some sort of way, because I felt like I had no answers for myself. Like, I felt like I was looking for and I guess that's really what led me. I had really kind of spiritual awakenings in different moments, but the most recent one was I was looking for answers outside myself, and I felt like I didn't trust anybody, so I felt like I was looking for answers in a different way. And for some reason, and I've been running away from tarot like my whole life. And for some reason I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get some tarot cards, and we're gonna go ahead and try it, and we're gonna see what happens. And I would read for myself and look through the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is right, and this is exactly how I feel, and this is what I should be implementing in my life, or this is what is in my life that is hurting me. So all these things, and yeah, it was just like a moment of things that kind of led me to bigger realizations. And it was a lot of, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live this way anymore. Yeah. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, above and beyond. So tell me how you said that you've been running away from tarot your entire life. So it had come up, I'm guessing, at different points.
Yeah.
And little hints that maybe you should try this. And why do you turn it away?
I turned it away because I listened to everybody but myself. And that's really what it was. I grew up, like I said, my grandma was super Catholic. She would go to church like 3 times a week. And that's just not something that you did. Which is, I don't know why, because in a lot of Hispanic households, everybody believes in some sort of like brujeria or something like that. And my grandma would actually go to people and get work done. But she would still pray the rosary. We're going to go to church. Don't do that. Like, you can't do that, but we're going to go to that. So it was a lot of that. And then I would find tarot cards randomly. I was always interested in that type of stuff. But then I would find tarot cards randomly. Like, I would walk down the street and I would find, like, the Magician. I'm like, okay, that's weird. That's spooky. And I would keep walking. And then I remember my cousin came over one day with a deck of cards. And I was like, we cannot have this. You got to get this out of my house. And she was like, no, it's fine, it's fine. I was like, no, we cannot. I would put them in a closet, and I was like, get your cards out of the closet when you leave, because I'm not having this in my room. We're not doing this. And she ended up taking them. I remember her taking them with her. And then like a week or 2 or something like that later, I opened the closet to get like an extra blanket, extra pillow, and I found the cards. And I was constantly running away from it. And it was this last experience, one of the most interesting experience that I had with a friend that I hadn't spoken to in like 5 years. I hadn't seen in 5 years. She graduated a year before me, went to somewhere in Northern California. I went to school away the next year, so I hadn't really seen her. And I had an experience of her wanting to hurt herself, and that's what the dream. It was completely blacked out. But it was her running to me, kind of like exposing her wrists. And I knew that she had done something bad. I didn't see, but I was just like, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine for whatever reason. And that was the end that was a dream. And a couple of days later, I saw on Facebook that she had posted something kind of like along the lines of, we're going to, like, a picture of her and her dog, like, we're having a hard time right now, but we're going to get through this. And I felt compelled to reach out to her. And I remember writing a whole list, or the whole story basically of what it was. And I was like, I don't know if I'm projecting my feelings of myself onto you or what it is, but I really feel compelled to tell you. And she ended up reading it and like disappearing for like an hour, and I was like, oh my gosh, I offended her, like I can't believe it. And she was like, when was this dream? And I told her it was like a couple days ago, 2 days ago. And she was like, this is so strange, because the night that you had this dream, I felt this way. She's like, I got into a really bad fight with my boyfriend. I felt like harming myself, and I didn't. She's like, that night, I went through a lot of stuff, but I just laid in my bed crying until I fell asleep. And she's like, the next day, I prayed for a sign. I prayed for a sign from God, and a couple of days later, you sent me this message. And for me, that's the moment where I was like, this is really more than me. This is really outside myself. And I remember telling my mom, I think I'm supposed to read tarot. I think for some reason that just clicked for me. And I didn't actually ended up buying my own deck. I bought my own deck until I think a whole year later, because I was like, I want to read tarot, but like not really. What if I read like loteria cards? And she's like, that's dumb. Don't do that. If you're gonna do it all the way. But she ended up, for some reason, I needed permission. I don't know why. I felt like I needed permission. And she was like, the only thing she told me, if you're going to do that, you have to be able to accept the good and accept the bad in people. And I was like, okay. And I think it took me a whole year, really, that's really what it was, of experiencing things for myself and experiencing the good and the bad in people for myself to really give into it. I guess that's the best way that I can say it, because it's been chasing me down for as long as I honestly could remember.
What do you think she meant by accept the good and the bad?
Um, you know what? I think that's really interesting. I think like the good experiences, like for me, that's what it is. And I think some people just have bad motives, and I think that's what she really meant. Grew up in a way that we always were evil was around, and how evil can present itself in different ways. And I think that's what she meant, was like, you are going to pick up, the energies of people, the bad energies and the good energies, the good thoughts that they have, the bad thoughts that they have, the thoughts that, or just the feelings that they have towards themselves or towards other people. And I think that's what she meant. Like, you're going to pick up, people's good motives and people's bad motives. And because for the most part, everybody thought that I was just someone that's like lived in La La Land, very flowery, very like, like I said, spoiled, lavish life, and more things just were handed to me, even though that wasn't necessarily true. I think she was just like, that's not everybody's not a good person. I think that's kind of more so that what she was telling me. And I pretty much knew that already. And I don't think I've had an experience since I've been reading, like actually reading people, that I've had where I felt bad, like evil or anything like that. I've touched upon like domestic violence situations, and I've touched on, really kind of toxic and abusive relationships with, parents or girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever it be, friendships in general. But I've never picked up on something like, this person is harmful completely, yet, at least. I mean, I don't know. It could have happened, but I've had picked up on some really touchy subjects before. And that is some things that I've never experienced in my life, and some things that I have. So it's been interesting. And I think a lot of the time I think it's really shocking to people, because sometimes it's things that people don't even want to talk about anymore, or they thought they've already dealt with, or they're trying to hide, sometimes from themselves. And here I am. It's not my choice, but I'm like, this is what you have, and this is what's going on. And a lot of when I first started reading, it was about what are the things that are preventing you from being your best self and from connecting to your highest self. And sometimes it is those traumatic experiences that we haven't quite dealt with. And I could never tell anybody, you got to get over this right now, because it's all in due time. But what I can say is, we're gonna have to work through this. We're gonna have to deal with this, and I'm gonna give you some tools that I know that works, or that are being recommended to me to tell you. And people ultimately, I believe in free will. They have the choice whether they want to do it or not. But that's not my job to make people to do things. My job is to help give people a clearer vision of what's going on and what they can do best for themselves.
Have you ever struggled with setting boundaries, especially with when you have a client and you're speaking with them? Maybe you feel something for them. Have you ever felt like you just get really invested? Personally, you feel very invested, but then you have to set these boundaries like, I can't, I've got to let them do this. This isn't for me to do, or in other parts of, your life. How do you set boundaries?
I've had a hard time with setting boundaries, and I think I've talked to you a little bit about it. Because I'm someone, honestly, I think because of what happened to me as a kid, where there was no boundaries where there should have been. I didn't have any. I didn't have in like there all the walls or I guess the best way that I can see it in my mind is like a fence. I didn't have a fence. I didn't have all that stuff. I let people just kind of walk in if they wanted to, walk out if they wanted to, because of what I had. Even though I didn't allow it to happen, I ultimately I ended up saying like this is not cool. I ended up telling somebody and it stopped, but it's still kind of like this presence that has over you. And so when it comes to tarot, it's taken me a while to really because people would be like, and tell me more and tell me more and tell me more, and um or like they want a reading every couple of days or every week, and I'm totally fine with that. But I think a lot of the time I can't tell you what to do, and that's what it was. Is people are afraid to live their life, and the other thing that I was afraid of was that people were going to do things based on my recommendation or based on what tarot was telling them, and it not happen the way that they were supposed or thought it was going to happen or anything like that, and then coming back to me, well, you told me to do this and all this stuff. And ultimately, like I said, we have free will. So I have to tell people like you need to live your life. And I will tell people like you just can't get a reading right now. I can feel when somebody needs a reading and someone doesn't need a reading, and or when they're ready for a reading. And some people just want this information because they're afraid to they and I get it because I used to live that way too. If I could have a handbook to how my life was going to be played out, I would totally have it. But we just don't have that. We don't There's no guidebook, there's no manual when you're born. And people really need that crutch. And I started seeing myself being that way a lot. And I had to tell people you need to live your life, you need to have experiences, and you need to learn from the experiences on yourself, like on your own. I can't tell you if that person is good or bad for you, but you have a deeper feeling and you need to be able to trust that. And a lot of it was I think a lot of people came to me thinking that I was going to say something different other than what they were feeling. And I really have never ever done anything like that. So I had to tell a lot of people like don't and a lot of it has to deal with relationships because I get it. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants their soulmate. All of course. Who wouldn't want that? But a lot of the time people are they're searching so bad that if they find someone that kind of fits that or they're interested in, they're going to stick with them. And because they want to be we're all human. So we want to be loved and we want to be sitting next to someone. Not everybody feels that way, but a lot of people do. And they would say like, how is this person? How do you feel about this person? What are the cards telling you about this person? And 8 times out of 10, it's mostly like you shouldn't be with this person. This person doesn't make you feel the way that you want to be, like you want to feel a certain way, and they're not making you feel that way. And they were like, you know what, kind of had that feeling, but I just really wanted, your opinion on it or what the cards were saying about it. And I'm like, you didn't need my opinion. And then like now you spent $20, $30 for me to tell you exactly what you already were feeling. And sometimes you need that confirmation. I completely get it on other things that are going on in your life. But sometimes it's like just follow your gut instinct. I think a lot of people are not willing to take chances anymore. And I completely get it because it's scary. The unknown is scary. And that's one of the things that it's like a common theme in the readings that I do the fear of the unknown. Whether that's going to be a relationship or not, or whether that's going to be what I'm wanting or not. So they want that kind of support. They want that crutch. So I've had to tell people, no, we can't do this right now. Or, you know what, like you are taking up not too much of my time. I have to learn how to say it. I've had to learn to say it in a nice way. And set time for myself because if I'm not feeling 100%, I cannot give 100% to somebody. If I'm not feeling good about and connected and in tuned to spirit, then the reading is not going to be good, and we didn't have a good interaction and a good exchange. So I've had to really learn, and some of my clients are really cool about it. They'll schedule a reading. I'm like, you know what? Because I'm so empathic, sometimes I just feed off of everybody's energy, or people just take my energy. And if I'll have a reading scheduled and I've dealt with some crazy customers, or I've already had some really heavy readings or something like that, I've had some clients, and they're usually my regular clients, that are really understanding, because they're like, we want you at your best because you give so much to us. And that's really what I've wanted in my life and appreciated in my life. When it comes to, I guess, the real world, which is not, this is all the real world, but when it comes to, like, I guess my personal life, I've had to learn what my boundaries were, and I've had to learn to kind of speak up for myself and to say, hey, that's not cool. Hey, I don't like that. We don't have the same kind of ideas. We don't have the same kind of, whatever it is. And that was really difficult, because I just always wanted to make everybody happy, and I always wanted to be viewed in a certain way, and I had to be comfortable and being okay with being not liked. And that took me forever to kind of, literally, like 20 something years, for me to be like, it's okay if somebody doesn't like you. You don't have to be liked by everybody. As long as you like you, that's all that matters. So it's been a work in progress, and I'm still working on it. And part of it was honestly getting my chakras aligned, figuring all that stuff out. I think it just gave me that extra boost that I needed, because everything was just in alignment, to really feel confident to speak about certain things, and just to say, that's not cool. I don't like that. You pushed a boundary. And yeah, it's kind of like you have to, and I've learned, I think there's something, I forget what it is exactly, but we learn with being protected, and I think that's what I was, very protective over myself, and then having to break down those walls. But then you also have to have boundaries in life. So kind of to bring them back up, and what's okay, and then to implement those boundaries and to apply those boundaries, has all been a process and a work. And I've gotten to the point right now where it's like, I know what I want and what I don't want, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that now. So now I'm learning to really apply my boundaries and to stand my ground and to not bend for somebody. Because, and the other thing too was, I was so comfortable with making myself uncomfortable because, and this is going to sound so confusing, but I was okay with me not being comfortable for someone else's comfortability. And I had to kind of undo that and say, you know what, my comfortability is what matters. And if someone is uncomfortable with the fact that I don't want them approaching me in a certain way or talking to me in a certain way, then that's okay. And it's been a whole process, and I think it takes a long time sometimes for people to learn that. And I'm lucky that I've learned that in my 25 years, because sometimes it takes people their whole life.
So I'd like to ask I mean, you've gone through so many different fluctuations in your journey. Have you ever felt like you're stuck in a certain place, and how do you push yourself out of that?
That's an interesting question. I felt like not that I was stuck. I don't think I've ever been in a place that way. And a lot of the times where I felt like I was stuck, it was dealing with some sort of anxiety, it was dealing with some sort of depression, and that's usually where I feel the most stuck, I guess. But it was just recognizing where I feel like I'm not going anywhere, I feel like I'm not moving anywhere. The same things don't make me happy anymore, all these things. And a lot of it is getting outside. For some reason, that's just, you gotta ground yourself. That's like I know you understand that and kind of feel that way, but you have to go outside and kind of get that fresh air and get a new perspective on things. And every single time where I felt some type of stuck, I would go outside. Like, I would go on a hike or something like that. The other thing is communicating my feelings. So I didn't paint for like a year. I didn't paint for a year after I had my mental break, and I was so saddened by the fact that I didn't paint, because I could not pick up for some reason. I had really mixed feelings about painting, and I felt like I was, and it might be weird, but I talked about it and I was like, no, that's normal. But that I felt like I was going through a breakup with my art and with painting. And because that's the first thing that I've ever done that made sense. Like, I guess when you feel like this is your passion, it just makes sense. It just clicks for you. Putting a brush on the canvas was like my home. It felt like I was being hugged all the time. It felt like all these things were going on, and I felt very proud of myself that I can turn nothing into something. And because I didn't have that, it was very like I felt lost because I wasn't painting. And I remember talking to my therapist at the time about it, and she's just, well, what she said really made me feel comfortable, which was, you're a real artist. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. She's like, because I've dealt with a lot of artists, people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars in art, and they've gone through feelings of like feeling stuck, and the first thing that they did was talk about it and communicate about it. And then in combination with going outside and feeling the fresh air and feeling different, because I feel like it's a lot of static energy just kind of there, just kind of getting that fresh refresher and finding some sort of inspiration. That's really what it was about. But a lot of it was, we got to get outside and we got to communicate, we got to talk about this. We can't like, I always tell people, you got to get all those thoughts that you have inside your head, you got to get them out some way, somehow. If that's not talking to somebody, a friend, a therapist, or whoever it is, you got to write it down. You got to do something. You got to get it out of your head. And anytime that I felt those type of ways, those are the things that I did, and that was really helped me kind of get that feeling. I had to just get the feeling out and look at it. I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense or this makes no sense. And you're not that you're crazy, but it's like, you can change this, that kind of thing. So, kind of making whatever I was feeling physical and getting an opinion, even if it was my own opinion on it, helped me kind of push me into a certain type of direction.
Earlier, you said sometimes with clients coming frequently to you, they're seeking answers that you can't really give them because you're not going to give them something that they want to hear. And I think there's this idea that, well, people want to control their lives. They want control, basically. And it sounds like you even said it's like giving things up to the universe, just seeing how things are going to go. And that's when things really start to fall into place.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who feel that way, who kind of feel like they're grasping onto something, whether it's a person, a job, some sort of outcome that they really want to happen, when they're grasping onto things that aren't serving them anymore? What's your recommendation to kind of shift out of that so that they can be like more in alignment with the things that are right for them?
Yeah. I think the times that I have felt that way, I'm really big on self-reflection. Really big on self-reflection. And I think a lot of the times that I did feel that way, it was like, why do you feel that way? And once I started asking myself why a lot, that's when I started figuring out why I was holding on to things for so long. Whether it is a job, whether it is and sometimes it's for like I remember there was this job and I knew it wasn't a good job. The boss, I worked for like a family business type of thing. We produce pageants, we produce all these things, and we also sold dresses and all these things regarding the pageant world, which I don't fit in because I just don't fit that look. I don't fit any of that stuff. But I liked having the authority. I liked dressing up. I liked going to all these meetings. I liked having the respect that for some reason that I was getting from people because my boss was well respected, which I don't necessarily know why. But she was, and I liked that feeling. But at the same time, I was barely getting paid anything. I was always completely stressed out. That was one of the reasons why I kind of had a mental break, because I was working like 50 hours plus a week and getting paid for like 20 hours. I was getting called all the time, all these things, but it was because everybody thought of how I looked, and I looked a certain way, and that's why I was totally fine with it. And then I didn't want to do it anymore because of all the stuff. What sparked that was like, I remember thinking my grandma was sick, and I was like, okay, I need to change the way my life is. Don't have time to visit my family because my family is 5 hours away. Don't have time to visit. I don't have any of that stuff. So I was like, why am I holding on to this for so much? Why do I have this attachment to this? And it sparked a lot of things. It sparked up of oh, because you just ended a relationship with this dude that made you feel less than. So this job makes you feel like something. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. And you feel like, and because what it was, she also promised, like, we were in the middle of doing the applications to start a beauty school. So she's like, this is a career for you. This is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be making so much more money than you're making now. This is somebody that just promised me a lot of things, because part of me, even though I have live a very, I guess, free, or like a alternative type of job, have alternative jobs. Part of me, I'm a Taurus. I like the stability, I like the money, I like all those things. That's what she was promising, and that's what she was telling me was gonna happen. So I'm always someone that is still career money minded. That's the reason why I did okay in business. And so I was just like, this appeals to all these things, because I'm afraid of not having a career, of not being able to support myself, or not being all valid kind of things. But it was all those whys. And then I was like, do we have to keep on to that? No, because that doesn't serve you. It doesn't make you feel good. These things don't make you feel happy. And a lot of it was just the why. Why am I accepting this kind of relationship? Why am I accepting this behavior, this attitude from my partner? Why am I accepting, or from my parents, or some from my friends, or any of that stuff? What's going on? And it was kind of like, I'm not going to allow this for myself anymore. And what can I do to undo those things? Or what can I do to say that will make me happy, or now, or something like that. But it was a lot of the whys. Why are we holding on to this? And that's what I would tell people. I know people want to live their truth, and want to live their best self, and put their light out, and I think that's awesome, and I think that's beautiful. But you just don't, like, some people just have it in them. They're like, this is me, and this is who I am, and I'm going to do it. But a lot of us are stuck to, societal views and ideas, and the ideas of culture. And even though that doesn't fit with us personally, some people it totally does, and it clicks, and that's what they want. They want to have that 9 to 5, and they want to make 200K, and they want to have the big house, and they want to have the cars. That totally works for people. Um, and that's part of them living their light, living their truth, because they're completely happy doing that. And some people, they don't, and they don't know how to get out of that. And the whys, the big whys of, why is this okay? Why do I accept this? Why do I want this? Why is that, all these things. So that's what I tell people all the time. You need to ask yourself why. Why that, okay, why do you feel that way? A lot of people don't want to ask themselves that, because a lot of people know that whatever they know the answer, and the answer is not the answer that's usually in agreement with what they're living right now.
I think you're right. I think you're entirely right. And, okay, I want to ask you now, what would you consider to be your biggest accomplishment? I know we're not usually people to toot our own horns,
Yeah.
and to think, so proudly of ourselves. So I really like to ask that question to everyone, just to see what they consider as a defining and accomplishing sort of moment in their life.
I have, not that I have a lot of those moments, um, but I have certain, and they're not big moments, but I think one of the my biggest accomplishment was really deciding to live for myself. And you decide that a lot of times throughout your life. But I think one of the biggest moments that kind of did that for me was when I had my mental break, and I decided to put myself in a hospital. And that's probably not the most glamorous, or the most, but that's the truth, and that's the truth that some people have. Because I decided I don't want to live this way anymore. I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to live in sadness. I don't want to live in so much stress. Um, I'm going to choose myself. I'm going to choose to live for myself. Even though at that time, I didn't necessarily, I chose my family, because I didn't want to hurt my family. I didn't want to put them through any grief or anything like that. But ultimately, it was for myself. Because I could have easily chose to go through with certain things, and I decided not to, because I decided to look at the bigger picture. And and when I was in there, and even afterward, it was making those daily choices of, okay, what am I going to choose for myself? So I think that's my biggest accomplishment, is just kind of, and not only just that, is talking about it. That's another thing too, because afterwards I kind of lived on, this only happened to me, and this is my thing, and this makes me you know, this is my thing that I have wrong with me, and I'm not perfect. I'm not going to be viewed as perfect. But when I started talking about certain things and started normalizing the conversation, a lot of other people felt comfortable, like, oh, I feel that way and I've been through that and I can understand that. And so there's a lot of little things that I think are really big defining moments to who I am today and who I am now.
It's interesting how your biggest challenge overlaps with your biggest accomplishment in a way, like the things that are just, so much bigger than us and just overwhelming at the time that just make us feel so small end up becoming the thing that empowers us later on. Okay, so you also said that talking about what you went through was a big thing, a big accomplishment. And that just made me think of how people can, do all the self work that they want for themselves and like keep it to themselves and feel good. But that good feeling only extends so far. And you kind of reach a new level of feeling good when you can share it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool that you mentioned that. It's not just making yourself feel good and putting yourself in a good state. It's being so comfortable with yourself that you're okay with sharing your truth.
Yeah, and it took a long time to be that comfortable with myself. But I've always had that inner knowing of I live the experiences that I live, not just for myself, but for other people. Because if I can tell you something that I've been through and how I deal with it, so you don't ever have to do that, or so you can literally learn from me, I'm all about it. Because I've gone through certain things and I figured, myself out. But a lot of it, and it honestly, it started off because I'm an emotional person and I would write my poetry about my exes and how they broke my heart and all this stuff. But I felt like this was an experience that only I felt, that only I went through. And then for some reason, I decided to, I posted a picture of a painting and I decided to post kind of a poem that went with it and a little explanation. And I got so many messages of, oh my gosh, I feel this exact way. I thought I was the only person that felt this way. And then one of my friends who had a healing circle, which is very similar to what we do here, but she had a healing circle of just women. And it was mostly because of her experiences with spousal abuse and all these, different abuses that she went through with her ex-husband. She decided to go ahead and kind of have a healing circle, a woman circle that came together. And I was like, I've never been married and I've never and then I figured out I was going through a lot of, emotional abuse and things like that I never put a name on it, but I knew that that was happening. I would not have known that if I wasn't in this circle of married women or women that had gone through domestic violence or anything like that. But she was like, share your poetry. And I was like, no, my poetry is like really dumb and it's like kind of young girlish because it was like about the first experiences that I really felt in love to what I thought was what love was because I hadn't experienced it until that moment. And she's like, just share it, just share it. And I was so embarrassed. I was actually the last person to share poetry. And people were singing and really being, and I would always wish that I could be that person that was so open and like, this is who I am. And this is because I was so stuck to the idea of what I was supposed to be or who thought I was supposed to be. And I was so envious of people that can just be themselves and sing on an open mic or do karaoke, even though they know their voice isn't good, but that's just what makes them happy and that's part of who they are. And I ended up just going. I forget who kind of really pressured me to do it, but I ended up being who I wanted to be, and always. And a lot of women that were older than me, because she's like, I want to say she's like 5 or 6 years older than me, and that were older than her too, they were like, yeah, I can relate to that. And I feel that way. And I didn't feel that way when I wasn't 18 or 19 or 20. I felt this way with my last boyfriend, and I'm 38 years old. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, okay, so I'm not the only person experiencing this. I'm not the only person that feels that way. And when I started realizing that if I didn't share, other people would feel alone in their feelings too. So I'm totally fine with being open, even though it takes me some time. I'm totally fine with being open and, talking about my experiences because I don't ever want somebody to feel like they're alone. And I've started realizing a lot of the things that, so one of the experiences that I had, this is a very touchy subject, but was that I was um, raped in a relationship that I was in. And I never felt comfortable enough to talk about it for almost a whole year after it happened, because I decided to continue to date this person after that had happened. And it wasn't like a traumatic experience. I wasn't drugged. I mean, it was traumatic, but I wasn't drugged. It wasn't brutal. It wasn't any of those things. So I felt like my conversation, or what I could add to the conversation, was not valid because those things didn't happen to me in that type of way. But when I started speaking about it, then I started, hearing a lot of my ex-husband did that, or my partner was like that, and I can relate to that, and I was with that person for years afterwards, and I didn't tell anybody, because I didn't want to be victimized. I didn't want all this stuff. But it was when I started speaking about things like that was really when it where I was like, again, I've had so many moments where this is bigger than how you feel. This is bigger than your moment. Not that I'm trying to minimize my moment at all, or what my experiences at all, but you're not the only person that feels this way. And if I can, even if it makes me uncomfortable to talk about it, if I can go ahead and talk about it and somebody be like, okay, what happened to me was what happened to me, and I understand that, then it's totally fine, and I will continue to do that, and will continue to talk about it, just so someone can feel validated in their own experiences and not have to question the rest of their life. Did I go through what I think I went through? And so I'm totally fine with talking about it, because sometimes we need to have that conversation. And since talking about it, and talking to people in my family and women that are close to me, how many women have experienced something like that, and it's so heartbreaking. Women that you would never know or never think of it, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I get mad. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but it's so insane that we felt very alone, because it wasn't a Brock Turner case, or it wasn't something that was like that, but it's something that's still. And I'm not saying like, oh, if it like we have to ignore those. No, those are really big things that we have to talk about too. But even the ones that aren't as bad or aren't as hurtful, um, those are the moments that we have to talk about also as well. And I felt like there wasn't a space around to talk about that, unless something really, really, not that I'm saying that that's good, or and my experience is better than anybody else, but I never felt like I had a place to talk about certain things like that until I started talking about things like that.
I want to say thank you for sharing so much of I mean, these are really personal things that have happened in your life. But as you just said, I think it's such a good thing to be able to talk about that and make it okay, because I mean, perhaps there's a listener who has gone through that.
Yeah.
And who hasn't been able to open their mouth and share this with someone that they feel they can confide in. Or as you were just saying, it doesn't always need to be some large scale situation, this huge scandal. Whatever happened, it can be small, quote unquote small.
Yeah.
But it's still something that you experienced, and it feels huge to you as an individual.
Definitely. And it's been interesting, especially a whole year later, to navigate certain things, because I didn't deal with it for a year. But that's because of things that have like it was happened as a childhood that I didn't deal with for many years. But it was something that I needed to navigate, with help of others, and the best way that I was able to deal with it was talking to other people about it. And that's when I found out about other people's experiences. But in that moment, we were able to heal, from our experiences a little bit. And I think that's ultimately what my purpose here is on the world, is to help people, like I said, live their best life, be their best self, be connected to their higher selves, but to ultimately heal from certain things. And if I have to be open and show my wounds, my scars, to do that, to say, hey, we have something similar, or we have all that stuff where I can heal, so can you, I'm going to do it. Because, and I say it time and time again, it is, the life that I live is bigger than my life. And I've always, I know when we talked about this podcast, we were saying, like, you were kind of explaining to me what it is, that you do. And it really is to just live your most authentic self. And if I can try a little bit to live my most authentic self and empower someone else to do the same, even if it isn't to have the job of your dreams, but it is to go ahead and be that quirky person in the office, or be the whatever it is that doesn't fit, you think, quote unquote, like you said, doesn't fit, just to do it and to feel okay with it because it makes you happy in the end of the day. And I think it's like a domino. You do it, someone else is gonna do it, and other people are gonna do it, and eventually we're going to have the world that everybody wants to live in. It might not happen in my lifetime, but I would love to be the part of that kind of the chain of events that happens and that does it. If I can sprout or start seeds in everybody to be really happy and to have these big ideas and to heal and to not be so quiet and to speak about things or all that stuff, I'm totally fine with that. And that makes, and then because it's gonna spread and it's gonna go and all that stuff. So that's really what I see, what I do. If I can start with one person, or we can start with a little idea and a little thought, and you can go and expand on that and for yourself and teach your kids or teach your siblings or whatever, and it keeps growing. That's what I was here for. This is what my whole life's about.
That sounds exactly like the mindset of a creative and a visionary person. Yeah, to see that, to see how your impact is so much greater than your own. I'm going to get into some closing questions for the podcast. And my first one is, if you were stranded on a deserted island, what is one thing that you'd want to have with you?
These ones are really hard always. For the first thing, and I don't know why, but the first thing that came to my mind was chapstick. And so I guess I'm going to have to go with that. Yeah.
Dude, that's like probably my item. I mean, my lips get chapped really easily, and so I just think like that desert sun.
Right? I don't know why that was like my phone. I was like, not my phone, and then it was like chapstick. You need chapstick. Take chapstick with you. So I guess chapstick. Yeah.
What are some routines or habits that you have that make you feel like your best self?
I'm someone that absolutely needs a routine. I fall off of it, but I think, which I'm starting to get back into, I always know when I'm falling out of my routine what it is. And it's wake up, stretch, meditate, take the dogs out, get them ready for the day, which sounds really weird, but feed them, give them food, spend some time with them, spend some time outside, go for a walk. And kind of everything after that, I really kind of play it by ear if I have something going on that day or not. But those are that start to the day really sets the tone for the rest of the day. And that's kind of what I've always, I've thought many a times, what am I going to do? What makes me happy? What do I need? And I've written about it, different versions of that. But that's usually what it is. Stretch, meditate, drink your water, get ready and all that stuff. But, that's really what it is, that beginning couple of things. And that's what I need in my life. And coffee now. I have to have a cold brew. That's what it is every day, a black cold brew. Or I'm not myself.
It sounds like a really good morning routine, putting you in the right mindset to tackle whatever it is you're gonna...
I know as a person that I need that. I definitely need that. And a shower at night too. The relaxing part of it also. But morning routine, no matter what's going on, that's how I have to start my day. And I know everything will be all right.
What's your sun sign and your ascendant and moon sign?
Okay, so I am a Taurus sun, and I am a Gemini rising, and I'm an Aquarius moon. Ooh. Yeah. I'm very complicated. If those don't talk about how complicated it can be, I really am. I got a lot of Gemini in me, which makes a lot of sense because I'm very talkative. And I'll talk for hours, and that's all that Gemini. I'm very analytical, so that's the Taurus. The Aquarius in me, and then the Taurus is the very stubbornness, the comfortability. We gotta make sure we're all right. We gotta, and yeah, all of that together makes an interesting mix. But understanding all of that has really helped a lot. So I recommend 100% to tell people, look at your birth chart. It's gonna explain so many things about yourself, and it's going to connect dots about, like, the why do I do this? Why am I like this? Why do I think this way? Look at that stuff. It will help you connect the dots. It'll make things click. I recommend it.
What is one thing that people might not expect that you'd be into?
I don't know. The first things that came to my mind, I don't know why, country music. Like, I like country music. And pickles. Like, I like pickles a lot. Like, a lot. But yeah, I guess those two. I think I'm someone that's very kind of, I like a little bit of everything, but mostly that. I don't think I've ever told anybody like I'm into this and they were like surprised. Besides probably country music because everybody hates it or whatever.
There's a lot of mixed feelings on it.
Yeah.
I like it too, but yeah.
I mean, it's not all of it. And even sometimes I'm listening to it and I'm like, this is dumb. Like, why are we talking about getting up in our truck and going? Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm not too much of a fan of the truck songs, driving in the...
But I like Miranda Lambert, love her. You know what I mean? Love her. Love Carrie Underwood. Like, I love those kind of ballad type of... That just makes me happy.
What is the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
So there's two pieces of advice. One of them was my dad told me a while ago, like, the only person that you're going to have for the rest of your life is you. So you have to, and it took me a long time to really feel that, you have to only worry about making yourself happy. And that really stuck with me, and I kept that one with me, and I tell that to a lot of people. The other one is something that my grandma told me in passing. Well, she already had passed away. It was a weird thing. I had a dream about my grandma right the next day after that she had passed away. And it was kind of like a white room, and somebody brought me to her. And when you're spiritual like I am, you're like, oh, my grandma visited me, and it was an interesting dream. It was very plain. So somebody brought me to her, and she hugged me, and the thing that she said and she said it in Spanish, and my Spanish is not good at all. But I remember roughly, like, now that I translated what it was work when you need to, but rest when you need to. It was definitely like, do the work. That's what it was. Like, do the work that you need to do, but don't forget to rest. And I thought that for some reason was something that I really needed to hear. Was something that I really needed to, because the dream that I had before that of her, she was like, why aren't you doing these things? I forget what things that they were, and I really wish that I knew what they were, but she was very aware of something that I hadn't told her about yet. And she's like, why aren't you doing it? That makes you happy. What are you talking about? And I think it was probably in combination of reading for people and doing art, but it was very much so that I will always keep with me is work when you need to, but don't forget to rest. And because I think that's really important. I'm always someone like, work hard, work hard, work hard. But you can get burnt out, and I think when some people get burnt out, they don't know how to get back up. And that is one of my biggest fears is not being able to get back up and being too tired to keep going. So resting and learning to rest when I need to is really important. So those are the two ones. You can only make yourself happy. You should only make yourself happy because you have you for the rest of your life, and work hard, but rest when you need to.
That is a scary thing, especially when you're doing what you consider your passion. Just doing it so much and you think, like, this is what I want. It's what I want. Yeah. But then it just becomes too much one day and you forget. You realize, when's the last time I did something just to take care of myself?
Yeah, and that is terrifying. Like, I recently did it's been in May. So it's been a couple months, like 2 months now. I did an event, and it was about, it's called Spa Sesh. So it was cannabis related, but it was about really kind of self-care. They had like manicurists, and they had masseuse, and they had me reading for people. And I had done the event the year before, or a couple months before, and not that nobody came to my tent, but I had like 5 people, there doing the reading. And this is when I had first started reading publicly. And I had done other little events and stuff like that, but this was one that was geared towards women, and I had like 5 clients that day. All the sessions weren't really great. The people that were skeptics, got not proven wrong, because I feel like they're always gonna have an ounce of skepticism in them, but they got the answers that they needed to get. And I remember this last event, I was busy. I it was from 10 to 4:30 or 10 to 4. I think I stopped reading at like 5 p.m. because there were so many people that were wanting to come in, and I took them all in, and I did 45-minute sessions with all these people, and then some. And in between my breaks there was a, hey, and I think I only took one break to eat tacos, and that was it. And it was like, hey, this is what's going on, can you go ahead and, like, can I get a reading with you, I was doing that the whole time. And there's people that I didn't even get to, but the next 2 days after that I was exhausted, like, super. And I drove right after that, like, I drove. I was in Ventura County, and I drove to Chico, so it was like an 8-hour drive. And so I was tired from that, but I was like really exhausted the next 2 days, where all I wanted to do was sleep, because my whole energy was just drained out. So that's when I started realizing, like, if I want to, and I already knew this about myself, but I know for me to do my best, there are certain things that I need to do. And one of it is grounding myself, doing groundings before reading, and cleaning my space, cleansing my space, and meditating, because meditating charges me. But then afterwards, after that's all done, I have to have time for myself. And I'm someone that gets very overwhelmed, not very overwhelmed, but even like just talking to people all day. I've worked in a lot of retail where it's like, hi, how are you doing? Do you need any help? Do you need all this? Talking to a lot of people, or when they're asking for assistance, being there and being able to communicate. I worked in sales before, and after seeing, and that there'd be times where I worked, it was very we had heavy door counts, which we would see 1,000 people a day. And knowing, okay, I worked 8 hours of that day, I didn't see all 1,000 people, but I probably saw like 700. And I would be so exhausted after that. I wouldn't be able to talk to anybody afterwards. I would go home and like not talk to my roommates until the next morning. And so I just, all those things, I was like, okay, you need time for yourself, you need to ground yourself, and you need to rest, basically, to be your best self, and to kind of have that not image, but like the person that I want to present every single day, that person needs to be rested. That person needs their breaks. So allowing myself to do that, which was hard. So I'm doing this event again in September, and the person that's planning and putting it all together, some of my really good friends, so they were like, hey, you need to be able to take your break. Like, how are you gonna do this? And I've decided I'm gonna shorten my sessions so I can get as many as I can. And but we have a break system. Like, they're like, you're gonna take a lunch, and if you need more breaks in between that. And me, the person that I am, the Taurus in me is like, I want to work. I want to work with people, and I want to do this. So pile them on. But that's why I love the friends that I have, because they're like, don't forget a break. Don't forget to take your rest. Like, we want you to be happy, and we want you to be strong still. So I'm stubborn. That's the Taurus again in me. But realizing, okay, no, I need to have it scheduled, and I need it to be less chaotic. And we were able to kind of do something that works, I think, that makes us happy, makes them happy. And because one person of the last event, she didn't even pay me. Like, she put her money out, and I was just like, I don't like taking money during the reading. So she had her $20 bill there, or $10 bill, I forget what it was. And then at the end of the reading, she like slipped it away, and I was just like, is this really what's happening? So I'm not even dealing with money this time. It's all prepaid and all this stuff. So I'm excited with having that structure. I know I need structure in my life. So sometimes I need someone to be like, this is the structure I'm giving you, and I'm totally fine with that. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to turn out, because it's like almost two different worlds, kind of how one event was towards another one. That was a long explanation for that.
It's still very cool. I liked hearing about it. You went into your difficulties setting your own boundaries, so having that structure sounds really good.
Yeah,
that way you don't have to overthink your own rules about how to structure things.
Yeah, and that's what they said. They're like, that way you can just focus on reading and not having to focus on taking money from people or taking all these things. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I have that. She's like, we'll have somebody bring somebody to you. You'll take a little break in between people to get set up again and all of this. And I'm like, that works so well, because I'm very much like, I don't like to be a burden on anybody. So I'm like, I'll take what you give me. If it's nothing, I'll take nothing. And they're really great people. So they're really supportive and they're just kind of, yeah, I love working with them.
Who is someone that inspires you?
Okay, I've probably sound very self-centered because I talk about me a lot. I inspire myself. And I think it's because I've had moments like certain moments of myself. I remember thinking like, you were so badass. Like, why don't you do that again? And I'm like, I can do that again. Okay, I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it in a little bit different way. So I inspire myself in that type of way. But the other person, if I had to not say myself, the other person that came to my mind is my grandma. My grandma is one of the most amazing women that I have ever met. And I'm lucky that my mom reminds me a lot of her. But my grandma was someone that had a lot of hardships, got married young, had lots of kids. They came from Mexico, so they didn't have a lot of money, they didn't have a lot of things, but my grandma was a hustler. She figured it out. She would sell chickens and she would sell pigs and she would sell all these things to be able to feed, because my grandpa kind of just gave her the bare minimum, like, that was his job too, that's all that he could really do. But like, we just got beans and we just got rice, and she would make sure that she would get the extras. You know what I mean? If somebody needed a toy or somebody needed something, she was the one that made the money, hustled, figured out a way to do that. She would, do all kinds of stuff. And I was just talking about her yesterday, which is interesting. Um, was that she didn't have the best like cards dealt to her, but she made the best out of it. And how I remember my grandma is she was very smiley and very like, obviously I know her very much older, but I've heard a lot of the stories that she's gone through and even the things that she would tell me. But she always made the best of it. She was very smart, even though she wasn't educated. I think she dropped out of school when she was in the third grade, and she still hustled and figured out a way. And not only that, helped people always helped people. People that needed a place to stay for a couple of days while they were going through the fields, because that's where my grandpa worked on the field. She would do that for them. She would be the person that would pray. She would pray for people, not because like I'm gonna pray for you, but more so like, I feel this with you, and we're gonna get through it together. And the only way that she knew how to get through it was through prayer. And so she would do that, and she experienced lots of hardships. Some that I can't even imagine. Losing. I think she lost like 4 children. And nobody should bury their own child, but she had to do that, and still be able to love as much as she loved. Like, she has so many grandkids, and she remembered all of our names, and she would always give us a Christmas present, and she would always be that type of. She didn't have to do any of that stuff, but she still did it, and she was very present in our lives, um, no matter what. And that's somebody that really she's always inspired me. And it's my mom tells me like, you always figure it out like your grandma, like you're always gonna figure it out. And a lot of it I feel like I still feel her around me all the time. I go visit her grave where she's buried. But just that, she just gives me this drive of like, I don't know, it's just really interesting. Kind of, she was very protective, but she was always very proud of me, and I've always um admire that. She would always like, don't go away too far. She would always tell my mom, tell her to move back, tell her to move back. But she was so happy and so proud of me for making my own life. And yeah, she just inspired me to live, basically.
I like both of those answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really cool to be inspired by the things that you've done and the things that you can accomplish, and being able to just to look at yourself and want to be a better version of yourself. So that's really cool to be inspired by yourself. And then also your grandma sounds like a wonderful person. I can see how just you talking about her, I can see certain qualities in you.
She just always made me happy. Like, always. And there was always a language barrier, but that didn't matter to us. I grew up with her until I was like 8. But yeah, she just was somebody that was really funny, really, and just really loving. Like, that's really what it was. And really just so she was just an awesome woman. But she gossiped a lot. She loved her gossip. I don't know any Hispanic household that doesn't like their gossip, but loved all that stuff, but she was always supportive and always there, and was always there to hear you out. and the other relationships that I hear that my other cousins or my parent or my mom or my aunts have with her, everybody says the same things. And it's all different. Nobody has the same relationship, but it's all very she was just there for us, you know? That's the and with a burrito and with some candy, some Mexican candy, she was just there and was willing to hear you out.
What's a book, a movie, a podcast, any sort of resource that has impacted you and that you would like to recommend to listeners? It could also be any resource that you have yourself.
Yeah. Therapy is what I tell people all the time, go to therapy. But the book that really kind of sparked a lot of things for me was I was someone that was, once I started reading or hearing about the law of attraction, I got really into it for a second. Even though it didn't also necessarily vibe with, I don't like using that word, but it didn't always resonate with how I was feeling. But I remember picking up a book that was basically about the same thing. Was Think the Way to the Life You Want to Live or something like that. I forget who it's by, but it's think the way of the life, or I don't know, something like that. And it's like a little book. It's I remember it really small. And it's not very long, and and if I find it, and if we could put it in the description, I will tell you to do it. But but that book really helped me see my life in a different way. It made me kind of really figure out a lot of the things that I have accepted for myself. And I mean, maybe not everybody will agree with that, but a lot of the things, that's where I get the idea of you gotta go through your branches and figure out the root cause to some things. And um, it helped me kind of look at that way. And it taught me a lot about self reflection, why self reflection is so important, especially if you don't want to live with certain things. And like some of the instances where I was so like what I have a fear of like being in a relationship. And I'm kind of getting over that fear now. But it was because I always grew up a little chubby little girl, and my mom was like, you need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. If you lost weight, you'd be so. I was always told, even though I was chubby, I was told like, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, you're the most beautiful creature. But if you lost some weight, imagine how many boyfriends you would have and all these people that would be falling over you. Things that you don't need to hear, but things that, and I completely understand now why my mom was saying that, because she just was like, I don't want you to be lonely and by yourself and all those things. That's still the very traditional way of thinking. And but because of that, I never took myself seriously in relationships, and I never took my partner seriously because I was like, this isn't a real relationship. I don't look the way that I'm supposed to look. I don't look all the like, I'm not ready. I'm not beautiful enough to be in a relationship, a really good relationship for one. So thinking of that, I thought all of these relationships were like I was in training wheels with them. They're like, this is the relationship I was in until the real one comes, until I get beautiful enough, until I'm smart enough, all this stuff. But seeing that, my mom didn't mean that, but that's the way that I interpreted whatever she was saying, and that's how I stuck with it and put that out into the world, and that's how I decided to live my life in a relationship. The other thing was that I have the need, not so much anymore, but when I was little, to feel validated, to feel being listened to. Probably because I lived in a household where there were four other kids and my parents worked all the time, but it was a lot of the time where I was so excited to talk about. I remember like, where does this feeling come from? The feeling to feel validated, to feel listened to, because not everybody has those feelings. But it was, oh, okay. I started thinking about it. Oh, because of this, and because of this, and because of this, and then I remembered almost the exact moment where I decided you need to be quiet unless you have something important to say. Excuse me. Was when I remember my dad worked at the post office, so he worked 8 hours outside walking all day in the Imperial Valley heat. So I'm daddy's girl. So I would always be like, Dad, 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 I'm so excited to tell you this. I'm so excited to tell you this. And he would I remember the one day he must have just been tired. And it only takes one day, one instance for something like this for you to decide things in your head about yourself. Was he like looked at me and like sighed, like, what? And I was just like, oh. what I'm saying is not important. He doesn't care about what I'm saying. And it kind of just completely defeated me. So I never really wanted to tell anybody anything unless I felt like it was going to be received. And that, so I had to undo some of those things and kind of like, and all that stuff takes work and all that stuff. You have to recognize where it comes from first. But that book really helped me and gave me the guidelines to be able to do that and to be able to see what I have accepted. And slowly but surely, you'll like, even my family, like now that I'm seeing my family on a daily basis, they're like, how you were a couple years ago is really different than how you are now. And it's not because I did something in particular, it's because of all these little accumulation of things that I decided to do. And that's part of it. Self-reflection is such a big thing that I think that we need to do as an individual for our own personal growth. And that book really gave me the tools to do it. And yes, it did say, if you, it wasn't just like think about this, because a lot of people are like, just think about that $1 million and one day you'll get $1 million check. Like, that's not really what it's about. And it broke it down. It's like, okay, if that's what you want, you gotta act and think and do all those things that millionaires do and millionaires have, and live those kind of, do those things. So it kind of broke it down in a way that made more sense to me. And it wasn't like this book that was very, um, like, it didn't use really big vocabulary. It didn't like super dumb it down. It was just like the right amount of, this is what it is and this is how it's doing, and it all starts with you. Like, whatever you want in life, it starts with you. So it, and I think I was so used to blaming people, so I kind of undo the blame. So it really kind of hit very different areas in your life. But that was the biggest part, which is going through the root causes of certain things to go ahead and it has wonderful examples in there. So that's a book I really recommend, and I tell people to read it all the time.
Yeah, definitely let me know what the exact title is,
Yeah,
and I'll
I will.
include that.
I will.
So, what's next for you?
I don't know. I really don't know. There's a lot of things that I want to do, and I just have to really follow through with the ideas. I would love to, even though Michelle Mercado does a really good women healing circle here, and she does that once a month. I would love to facilitate. Not, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the spiritual sense, but more of like a group therapy for women. Even just to talk about, like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend is so annoying, and I have 3 kids, and they're driving me up the walls. Do you feel like that? Okay, I feel like that too. I'm not crazy, right? Like, even just to talk about that, I think that needs to happen. Because, well, if you go back, that's what women did back in the, like, hunter-gatherer. They sat together and they just talked, and yeah, I think we have to go back to certain things like that. I would love to have my own art gallery, either here in the Valley or just in general, where we can do lots of different kinds of shows and really do a lot of different workshops on top of that. I would like to expand my platform and do a lot of different things when it comes to tarot, but not even just that. I think I use tarot as a tool of, like I said, self-reflection. I keep saying that, but like, it really is. It's a tool of, this is what's going on, and let's address it and let's talk about it. And even if you don't want to talk about it with me, you don't have to, because a lot of the times when I do a reading for someone, they're like, this was like a therapy session. And so kind of figure that out. And I would love to work with youth, at-risk youth, because I feel like if we can nip a lot of the things in the bud, that'd be awesome. And if I could be part of that, I would love to do that, because I've done that in the past and it's amazing. But just to kind of do all those things in combination. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know which way I'm going to do it, but those are all the things that are in the plans and in the works in my mind. That's pretty much it. And see where all that takes me and how I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going to do it.
I know you're going to do it too. That all sounds really amazing. I like your plans, and you're going to see them through.
Thank you. I know. It's going to be hard, but I know I'll do it.
So where can people find you? Any links or your social media? You know, just spit those out. So Instagram is probably the best way to find me. I'm on other stuff, but Instagram's the best way. That's where I'm the most
were able to communicate with me more. I do, so that's Gen Z, GENNZY on Instagram. And there I do monthly tarot videos. I'm starting and I'm recording to talk about different topics. So I'm gonna do a topic about closure and whether that is necessary or not necessary. All of the topics that we touched upon in this podcast, a little bit more on there, and just kind of funnier things that women experience that I experience in my life, that so people feel like they're not alone in that, even the funny ridiculous things. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of expand that. That's on my Instagram TV, and expand on that more. And there you'll see like my art also. Like I'm just a package deal. Like you see my art, you see the tarot, you see the other things that happen in my life there. So I just live it all together there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to go check that out for sure. All right, Jen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome. And thank you for being so receiving. That's what I really appreciated.
Well, yeah, of course. I feel like I could resonate with a lot of the things that you're saying. Somehow, just as you said, like when one person says something, it shines a light on something else in another person.
Definitely.
So while I didn't live your experiences, I can relate to some of the things you said. So I look forward to listeners being able to resonate with that as well.
I look forward to that too. And they want to talk about it. My Instagram messages are always open to kind of have that communication and have that conversation continue on. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Of course.
And that, my friends, is the end of today's episode. Does anyone else kind of hate endings? Personally, I have a bit of a dislike for endings of movies, books, podcasts, TV shows, anything. I like the feeling of finishing something, but I also don't like when that something is over. In this case, I think I just really enjoyed the conversation I had with Jen. To me, she's at the top of her game, and every day she continues to push that. It's really inspiring, and I had so much fun talking to her. Earlier during the introduction, when I said that Jen has an answer for everything, I wasn't kidding. You can probably see that, right? The way she said that people would come up to her for advice when she was younger just proves how she's incredibly tapped in, and she's always been since a young age. Yeah, a big thing I think she's trying to cultivate is that intuitive sense in others. Like get people more in touch with their feelings and connect to their inner knowing. I'm thrilled to see where she takes us and see the expansion of methods to help others. If something from this episode stood out to you, perhaps share it with a friend. You could also leave a comment on my latest Instagram with your favorite part. Let me know what you liked, anything that stood out to you. I'd love to hear what you guys think. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I send you all so much love and light. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Bye, guys.